I took a deep breath, smoothing my hands over my navy blue skirt suit as I stepped into the bustling state building lobby. Today was the big day, my interview for the senior correspondent position at the governor's office. This opportunity could be a game changer for my career. As a single mom, balancing work and raising my 8-year-old daughter Haley was a constant juggling act, but I was determined to make it work. The assistant at the front desk greeted me with a polite smile. "Miss Carter, the governor's team is ready for you upstairs," I nodded, mustering my most confident expression. "Thank you, I'm ready." As I made my way to the elevators, my phone vibrated in my purse, probably Haley checking in from school. I pulled it out to check the caller ID, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Haley's number, but much too early for her to be out already. "Mom, please come home. I heard everything." Haley's small voice trembled through the speaker, laced with fear. "What do you mean, sweetie? What happened?" "It's Keith. He hurt me. I heard him talking about something bad." The world around me seemed to freeze as the weight of her words sank in. Keith, my charismatic boyfriend of 6 months, had always been so warm and caring towards Haley, but the terror in her voice was unmistakable. "Haley, I'm on my way right now," I said, my voice shaking. "Stay hidden and don't let Keith see you, okay?" Without a second thought, I bolted out of the building, the governor's interview forgotten. My mind raced as I jumped into my car, scenarios of what could have happened flashing through my mind. How could I have been so blind? Keith had seemed like the perfect guy, kind, successful, even getting along well with my ex-husband Peter for Haley's sake. But now, my little girl's words echoed in my ears, a sickening pit forming in my stomach. I had to get to her, and fast. I burst through the front door of our modest suburban home, my heart pounding. "Haley? Haley, where are you?" A small figure emerged from the hallway closet, tears streaming down her face. Haley ran into my arms, trembling. "Mommy, I was so scared." I held her tight, stroking her hair. "It's okay, baby. I'm here now. What happened?" Haley sniffled, her little hands clutching my blouse. "Keith came home early from work. Spat. He was yelling on the phone about some money problems. Then he started throwing things around the living room." A chill ran down my spine. In all our months together, I had never seen that side of Keith. "I tried to stay quiet in my room," Haley continued. "But then he came in and grabbed my arm really hard." She rolled up her sleeve, revealing angry red marks. White-hot fury coursed through me at the sight of those marks on my baby's delicate skin. How could he lay a hand on her? "Haley, I'm so sorry," I whispered fiercely, holding her close. "This will never happen again, I promise." The front door opened and Keith walked in, his expression changing from confusion to feigned concern when he saw us huddled together. "Jenna? What's going on?" I met his gaze with steel in my eyes. "How dare you put your hands on my daughter?" Keith's face contorted in mock bewilderment. "What are you talking about?" Haley must be making things up again for attention. He knelt down, his voice taking on that sickly, sweet tone he used to manipulate. "Isn't that right, princess? You know I'd never hurt you." Haley shrank back against me, her eyes wide with fear. In that moment, I knew her terror was real, and the man I thought I knew was a monster. "Get out," I snarled at Keith. "Get out of my house and don't ever come near us again." His expression darkened, the mask slipping. "You'll regret this, Jenna. I can make your life hell." Before I could respond, the front door opened again, and Keith's 16-year-old son Ethan walked in, his headphones on and oblivious to the confrontation. "What's going on?" he asked flatly, taking in the scene. Keith straightened, his charming smile returning like a light switch. "Nothing, son. Just a little misunderstanding. Why don't you go on up to your room?" Ethan shrugged and disappeared down the hallway. I watched him go, a sinking feeling in my gut. If Keith could put on such a convincing act for his own child, what else was he capable of hiding? "This isn't over," Keith hissed, grabbing his coat. "You're going to be sorry you crossed me." With that, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. I held Haley close, my mind whirling. What had I gotten us into? And how could I protect my little girl from the storm I sensed was coming? After Keith's explosive confrontation, I knew I needed backup to protect Haley and myself. I texted my ex-husband Peter, knowing he would drop everything for our daughter's safety. Within the hour, he was at my doorstep, his face etched with concern. "Jenna? What's going on? Are you two okay?" I quickly recounted the incident with Keith as Haley clung to my side, her eyes still red from crying. Peter's expression darkened with barely contained fury. "That son of a bitch laid his hands on my little girl?" His fists clenched. "I'll kill him." "Pete, please." I put a hand on his arm, trying to calm him. As much as I understood his anger, violence wouldn't solve anything. We need to handle this carefully for Haley's sake. He took a deep breath, nodding reluctantly. Peter had always been protective of us, even after our divorce 2 years ago. I was grateful he was still in our lives. The next morning, I headed into work with Haley by my side, determined to investigate Keith's background more thoroughly. I pulled my tech-savvy colleague Tony aside. "Tony, I need your help digging into someone's digital footprint," I said in a low voice. "It's sensitive." Tony's eyes widened behind his thick glasses, but he simply nodded. "Say no more. Bring me what you've got, and I'll get to work." Back at my desk, I pulled up every scrap of information I had on Keith. Emails, phone records, social media profiles, anything that could provide a window into the truth behind his carefully crafted persona. As I compiled the files, movement at my periphery caught my eye. I glanced up to see Haley standing beside my desk, clutching her well-worn stuffed bunny. "Mommy, when is Keith coming back?" she asked in a small voice. My heart clenched at her innocent question. I got up and knelt in front of her, taking her little hands in mine. "Baby Keith, he's not a good man. You were right to be scared of him." I struggled to find the right words, my protective instincts raging. "He won't be coming back, ever. I won't let him hurt you again." Haley's lower lip trembled, but she nodded bravely. In that moment, I silently vowed to do whatever it took to keep this little girl safe from harm. Later that evening, Tony came to my apartment with a grim expression. "Jenna, you were right to be suspicious of this Keith guy." He pulled out a stack of printed documents, phone records, bank statements, even court filings from other states. I did some deep digging, and it's not pretty. Tony laid out a trail of evidence, a history of debt and unpaid loans, allegations of fraud and intimidation from ex-business partners. It painted a picture of a manipulative, vindictive man constantly chasing money through shady schemes. "There's more," Tony continued grimly. "I found 2 ex-wives who filed restraining orders claiming emotional and financial abuse. One of them, she dropped off the grid about 5 years ago." A chill shot down my spine. Had Keith's twisted games gone even further than we realized? I thought of Haley's terrified face, and my blood boiled. "We need to take this to the police," I stated, my voice hardening with resolve. "And we need an ironclad case to put this bastard away for good." Tony and I exchanged a determined look. For my little girl's sake, I would burn Keith's life to the ground and salt the earth. He had inexcusably threatened the most precious thing in my world, and he was going to pay. Over the next few days, I tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Haley's sake while Tony and I continued digging into Keith's past. The more we uncovered, the sicker I felt. Unpaid debts, allegations of fraud, and a string of scorned exes in his wake. Just how deep did this man's depravity run? One evening, there was a heavy knock at the door. I tensed, pulling Haley closer to me on the couch before getting up to answer it. To my surprise, it was Keith standing on the doorstep, an unsettling smile plastered on his face. "Hello, Jenna. Aren't you going to invite me in?" His voice was sickly sweet, but I could see the cold threat simmering in his eyes. "You're not welcome here," I stated firmly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want you to stay away from me and my daughter." Keith's expression hardened. "That's no way to speak to your boyfriend, Jenna, after all we've been through together?" He took a step forward, and I instinctively moved to block him from entering. "We're through, Keith. I know what kind of man you really are." I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. The lies, the manipulation, threatening a child, it's sick. A muscle twitched in his jaw, but that eerie smile didn't waver. "You don't know what you're talking about, babe. Haley's just a troubled little girl looking for attention. Maybe I was a little rough with her, but she had it coming, disobeying me like that." White-hot fury lanced through me at his casual dismissal of abusing my daughter. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to lash out physically. "Get off my property before I call the police, you psychopath." Keith's gaze flicked over my shoulder, catching sight of Haley peeking around the corner. His smile widened, sending a chill down my spine. You'll regret this, Jenna. You have no idea what I'm capable of. With that ominous warning, he turned and strode back to his car, leaving me shaken. I quickly shut and locked the door, pulling Haley into a fierce hug. It's okay, baby. He's not going to hurt you again, I promise. My words sounded hollow even to my own ears. If Keith was willing to threaten a child, what other depraved acts was he capable of to regain control? The next morning, I arrived at work to find Tony waiting anxiously at my desk. Jenna, you'd better see this. He pulled up a series of images, screenshots of disturbing internet searches from Keith's laptop. Things no sane person should ever be looking for, much less the man dating a single mother. My stomach turned. There's more, Tony said grimly. I accessed the cloud backup for your home computer and, well, see for yourself. With a few keystrokes, he pulled up a video feed from inside my living room, a hidden camera I never knew existed. I felt violated all over again, watching mundane family moments playing out, all secretly recorded by that monster. We have to go to the police now, I stated, feeling numb. With this evidence, they can put him away for a long time. Tony nodded in solemn agreement, but something nagged at the back of my mind. If Keith was this unhinged and desperate, what other surprises might he have in store for the people trying to take him down? I made a call to Peter, knowing we'd need all the backup we could get. There was no going back now. For Haley's safety, I had to dismantle Keith's life, piece by sickening piece. With the damning evidence Tony uncovered, we knew we had to act fast before Keith could make his next move. Peter agreed to take Haley somewhere safe while Tony and I solidified our case against that monster. Are you sure about this, Jenna? Peter asked, concern etched on his face as he held our daughter's hand. This guy seems capable of anything. I don't want you putting yourself in danger. I have to do this, Pete, I stated firmly, for Haley's sake. Keith needs to go away for a long, long time where he can't hurt anyone else. Peter nodded reluctantly. Just be careful, and call me the second you need backup, you hear? After they left, Tony and I got to work compiling every shred of proof we had. Bank records, court filings, the recordings from the hidden camera. It was a dizzying array of manipulation and deceit. Wait, there's more, Tony said, his eyes widening at his computer screen. I think I found something big. He turned the monitor to show me a series of money transfers to an offshore account I'd never seen before. And not just any money. These amounts were huge, in the millions. What the hell is this? I breathed. Where is Keith getting this kind of cash? Tony shook his head grimly. I don't know, but it can't be legal. And look at this. He scrolled through more documents, fake IDs, fraudulent passports, all under different aliases linked to those shady transactions. A sickening realization began to dawn on me. You think he's been running some kind of long con, scamming and manipulating innocent people out of their life savings? The pieces were starting to fall into place. Keith's constantly shifting business ventures, the trail of embittered exes, his quick attachment to me and Haley despite his shady past. He'd simply been looking for his next big score, and I'd let him get dangerously close to my family. We need to take this to the authorities right away, I stated, feeling numb, before he gets tipped off and tries to run. Tony nodded grimly. I'll make some calls. We're going to bury this bastard. I forced myself to stay focused over the next few hours as we marshaled our evidence and contacted the police, but my mind kept drifting to Keith's earlier threat, his cold eyes boring into me. What else was he capable of to protect his con? A sudden knock at the apartment door made me jump. I tensed, reaching slowly for the baseball bat I now kept within reach at all times. Who is it? It's me, Ethan. Keith's son? The teenage boy's muffled voice came through the door. I need to talk to you about my dad. My blood ran cold. Had Keith sent his own child here to threaten me? Or worse? I gripped the bat tighter as I cracked open the door a few inches. Ethan looked past me into the apartment, his expression unreadable. I know what my dad's really been up to. The lies, the money. I want to help you take him down. I searched his face for any hint of deception, but his steely gaze seemed sincere, if haunted. Slowly, I opened the door the rest of the way. Tell me everything, I said grimly. If Ethan was truly on our side, he could be the key to finally destroying Keith's web of schemes once and for all. For Haley's sake, and every other innocent life that monster had shattered, I would make sure Keith paid the ultimate price. No mercy, no half measures. It was time to end this. With Ethan's help, the pieces finally fell into place. The kid may have been aloof, but he wasn't blind to his father's twisted games. Turns out Ethan had been collecting evidence against Keith for years, secret recordings, financial documents, you name it. I always knew there was something off about him, Ethan explained, running a hand through his shaggy hair. The constant moving, the shady business deals, the way he treated women like they were disposable. I just didn't know how far it really went until recently. Tony and I exchanged a grim look as we pored over Ethan's trove of damning evidence. It was a dizzying paper trail of fraud, emotional abuse, and ruined lives in Keith's wake. We have to take this public, I stated, feeling that familiar fire burning in my chest. Expose every last one of his sins to the world so he can never hurt anyone again. Are you sure that's wise? Ethan asked hesitantly. My dad, he's capable of anything when he's backed into a corner. If he gets tipped off, he could run, or worse. I thought of Haley's terrified face that day, the marks on her little arm from Keith's vicious grip. No, I was done playing his twisted game by his rules. Your father's reign of terror ends now, I said, my voice hardening. We're going to take him down in a big way, live for the whole world to see. No more hiding in the shadows. With grim determination, we got to work. First order of business, find out where Keith's next big public appearance would be. The slime ball never missed a chance to preen for the cameras. Sure enough, Tony discovered Keith was headlining some big corporate event in a few days' time, rubbing elbows with local bigwigs and politicians. Perfect. Next, we looped in some other key players, Peter to help keep Haley safe and secure, and Linda, one of Keith's ex-wives who had barely escaped his clutches with her life years ago. She was more than eager to help bring him down once and for all. I'll be there with everything I have on that monster, she stated grimly over the phone. It's long past time he faced real consequences. Finally, the big day arrived. I could feel the adrenaline thrumming through my veins as we got into position at the convention center where Keith's event was happening. Peter and Haley were safely tucked away, but I knew my little girl was watching over the live stream we had set up. Keith took the stage, all false bravado and that trademark smarmy grin, utterly oblivious to the reckoning that was coming. I caught Ethan's eye across the room and gave him a nod. Let the fireworks begin. With a few keystrokes, Tony hijacked the big screens flanking the stage. Suddenly, Keith's smiling face was replaced by images and footage documenting his endless trail of sins. The fraud, the abuse, the conning of innocent victims out of their life savings. I watched the color drain from his face as he realized what was happening. No, you can't do this! But it was too late. Linda was already striding towards the stage, her face contorted with years of pent-up fury. Hello, Keith? She spat venomously. Remember me? As he sputtered and backpedaled, more damning evidence filled the screens. Transcripts, audio recordings, all of it leading back to him. There was no wiggle room, no escape hatch this time. I stood tall, staring Keith down as security finally moved in to subdue his thrashing form. This is for my daughter, you sick son of a bitch, I called out, loud enough for the cameras to catch. Your reign of terror is over. Keith met my gaze then, and I saw the mask finally crack, revealing the depraved, soulless monster beneath. But I didn't flinch. I was done being afraid. As they dragged him away, I felt something loosen in my chest. A weight finally lifted after all these months of living in fear. My little girl was safe, and that twisted bastard would never be able to hurt another innocent life again. The days after our explosive expose of Keith's crimes were a whirlwind. Giving statements to the police, fielding a frenzy of media inquiries, and trying to shield Haley from the spotlight as much as possible. But through it all, I felt an immense sense of relief and vindication. That monster was finally behind bars where he could never hurt another innocent family again. Peter had been an absolute rock, keeping Haley occupied and reassuring her that the nightmare was over. I don't know what I would have done without his steady presence. You did it, Jenna, he said simply one evening as we watched Haley playing in the living room, mercifully oblivious to the weight we had all carried. You saved her. I managed a weary smile, suddenly feeling the full extent of the emotional trauma. We saved her, Pete. If you hadn't been there for us. He gave my hand a comforting squeeze, and I felt a pang of regret that things hadn't worked out between us as a couple. Peter was a good man, a great father, but I had been too obsessed with my career to make our marriage a priority when it mattered most. At least now, in the aftermath of this chaos, we could be united as co-parents for Haley's well-being. A firm knock at the door pulled me from my reverie. I tensed automatically. Too many months of living on edge, I supposed. But when I pulled it open, I saw Ethan's familiar, brooding expression. "Hey!" He shuffled awkwardly on the doorstep. "I wanted to check in, see how you guys were doing." I studied Keith's son carefully. He had been through his own private hell, witnessing his father's depravity up close over the years. But in the end, Ethan had chosen the moral path, despite the risks. "We're coping," I replied honestly. "It's going to take some time to feel really safe again, you know?" Ethan nodded, looking pained. "Yeah, I get that." He drew a deep, shuddering breath. "Look, I know I can't make up for the shit my dad put you through, but if you'll let me, I want to be here, you know? For Haley and—" He trailed off, his jaw tightening. In that moment, I saw it, the longing for some semblance of family, of stability, underneath his prickly exterior. This poor kid had been starved of that his whole life, thanks to his father's toxicity. On impulse, I reached out and pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. He stiffened at first, then melted into the embrace with a quiet sigh. "You're a part of this family now, kiddo," I murmured fiercely. "We'll get through this together." There would still be plenty of hard days ahead, to be sure, wounds to mend, trust to rebuild. But in that moment I felt a sense of hope and determination well up in my chest. We had taken down the biggest demon of all. Whatever other battles awaited, we would face them head-on, unafraid, our little family of survivors bound by our scars yet standing tall. When I finally released Ethan, I saw the glimmer of tears in his eyes, but he quickly blinked them away with a gruff nod. That was okay. We had all the time in the world now to learn how to heal and find our strength together. "Come on in," I said with a soft smile, gesturing inside. "There's someone who's going to be real happy to see her new big brother." As Haley came bounding over, her face lighting up at the sight of Ethan, I knew we were going to be all right. The nightmare was over. A new chapter was just beginning. In the weeks after Keith's dramatic downfall, life slowly began to return to normal, or at least some semblance of it. The nonstop media frenzy died down, the police wrapped up their investigation, and that sick, twisted chapter was finally closed. Of course, the emotional scars would take much longer to heal. I could see it in Haley's eyes sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking, that flicker of residual fear and uncertainty. My poor baby had her innocence shattered at such a tender age. But she was a resilient little fighter, my girl. With me, Peter, and even Ethan rallying around her, she found her sunshine again, bit by bit. Ethan, I'll admit, I had my doubts about him sticking around at first. The kid had been through his own private trauma thanks to his scumbag father. Who could blame him if he wanted to just cut and run from this ugly chapter? Instead, he stunned me by digging his heels in, determined to build a real relationship with Haley and be the supportive big brother figure she needed. They grew inseparable those first few months, playing endless rounds of make-believe and watching corny movies together. I'll never forget the night I caught them giggling secretly in the living room, Ethan's face unguardedly joyful as Haley smeared makeup all over his cheeks. Just a couple of silly kids being kids, without a care in the world. In that moment, my heart swelled with overwhelming gratitude that we had each other to lean on through the darkness. Of course, Peter was instrumental as well, my eternally patient ex-husband and co-parent. I lost count of how many times he dropped everything to rush over, whether it was fielding a night terror from Haley or just giving me a shoulder to cry on. "You don't have to thank me, Jen," he said simply one evening as we sat on the porch, enjoying the tranquility. "I'll always be here for you two. That's never going to change." I felt a pang of wistfulness, thinking of what might have been if I had prioritized my little family over my all-consuming career years ago. Peter was a good man, a good father, maybe in another life. But I pushed those thoughts aside, giving him a grateful smile. "I know, and that means everything, Pete. Really." As the summer days stretched on peacefully, I found myself slowly shedding the weight of fear and hypervigilance I'd carried for so long. The smiles came more easily. The laughter rang out more freely in our humble little home. One evening, I was putting Haley to bed when she stopped me shyly. "Mommy, can I give this to Ethan? To say thank you for being so nice?" She was clutching one of her prized possessions, a delicate wind chime made of bright seashells that Peter had brought back from a vacation years ago. Despite her young age, Haley understood the significance of such a gesture. I felt a lump form in my throat as I stroked her soft hair. "Of course you can, baby. I'm sure he'll love it." As I left her bedroom, I could see Ethan lingering in the hallway, his brooding expression softening just a touch as he watched his new little sister drift off to sleep. In that moment, I knew we had finally formed our own little family, a bit unconventional, a bit scarred, but bound by cords tougher than blood, loyal, protective, and absolutely unbreakable against any storm. I caught Ethan's eye and smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace wash over me. The nightmare was finally over. All that remained was the warm, brilliant promise of new horizons ahead. As I drifted off to sleep that night, the gentle chiming of Haley's gift to Ethan echoed faintly, like a lullaby ushering in hopeful dreams. Our future was wide open, the possibilities endless, and we would face it together, steadfast survivors all.
We'll be taking care of my sister's kids starting next week.
Right when I thought we were finally settling into a more manageable phase in the second trimester, my husband Liam announces this. "We're taking care of your sister's kids. You do realize I'm pregnant, right?" Despite my protest, he retorted,
"But you're in your second trimester, aren't you?"
It seemed like he was ready to dump everything on me from the get-go. I couldn't bear it any longer, not just for my sake, but for our unborn babies too. So, I decided to call someone. My name is Emily. I'm 28 years old. I've been married to Liam for almost 3 years now, and we're expecting our first child. I quit my job and became a stay-at-home wife as soon as we found out I was pregnant. Originally, I planned to work until my maternity leave, but severe morning sickness forced me to give up. Quitting was a hard decision, but I didn't want to inconvenience my employer with unpredictable absences. Thankfully, I've just entered the second trimester. The dreadful nausea has subsided and I can eat somewhat normally again. I was looking forward to a peaceful pregnancy from here on out. That was until one day, while I was preparing dinner, Liam got a call that seemed to turn his mood sour.
"What? Next week? But that's so sudden." "Yeah, I understand."
He sighed deeply after hanging up. It was clear something serious was up. "What's wrong? Who was that?"
"It was my sister Rachel."
"Rachel? What did she say?" I pressed, noticing his discomfort.
"I've agreed to look after her kids starting next week."
"What?"
"Her kids will be here from next week."
"Wait a minute. What are you talking about?"
"School's out next week, right? She said it'd be hard with the kids around and asked if we could take them."
He explained nonchalantly. The audacity to drop such a bombshell on me. I felt a surge of anger towards him. I expressed my frustration. "Look, I'm pregnant. Do you get that? And her kids, they're 3 boys, you know."
"I know, but you're in your second trimester."
Seriously? Was he for real? Being in the second trimester doesn't mean everything is suddenly fine. Furious, I snapped back. The second trimester doesn't change anything. I'm in a different state being pregnant. Taking care of her kids, 3 energetic boys, is out of the question.
"There's no use arguing. She said it was too much for her."
So you're just going to ignore how I feel? Deciding this without even asking me?
"Oh, come on. Stop nagging. Think of it as a practice run for parenting."
A practice run? With a grade schooler and 2 preschoolers? Do you really think I can handle 3 rowdy boys right now? I challenged him. He couldn't respond, just looked down guiltily. And how long will they be staying? I asked, only to be shocked again by his answer.
About 2 weeks.
What? 2 weeks? That's way too long. Are you out of your mind?
That's what my sister says, so there's nothing I can do. If you have a complaint, talk to her, not me.
All I hear is, my sister this, my sister that. Don't you have your own opinion? Putting her needs above your pregnant wife's?
I had no choice. My sister is scary when she's mad.
What kind of reason is that? I was exasperated. Liam has an older sister, Rachel, who is 5 years his senior. Despite nearing his 30s, he's never been able to stand up to her, likely due to the age difference and her domineering personality. He's always prioritized her demands, which has always made me feel helpless. Until now, I might have let it slide, telling myself that that's how she is. But things are different with a baby on the way. I couldn't live with myself if something happened to our child. I had to put my foot down. Please, just tell your sister no.
But it's already been decided.
I don't care. What if something happens to the baby? Can you take responsibility?
Why would you say that? Think about my position too.
I don't care. Just say no to her for once.
If you feel so strongly, why don't you talk to her yourself? I can't do it,
he said before locking himself in his room. What was that attitude? Prioritizing his sister over his pregnant wife? Is this really happening? I had to talk to Rachel as soon as possible. I tried calling her, but she wouldn't pick up. Why? Why isn't she answering? She knows how assertive I can be. Maybe she thinks she's won by just sending the kids over. Despite multiple attempts, she never answered the phone. How can she, a mother herself, not understand how I feel, pushing her kids on me for 2 weeks? She's had 3 kids herself, yet she seems okay with burdening a pregnant woman like me. I couldn't fathom her logic. There's another reason for my resistance. I've taken care of her sons before. Even with my mother-in-law's help, it was incredibly challenging. The kids were everywhere, screaming, throwing food around. It was hard enough without being pregnant. I couldn't possibly manage now, especially since they're likely even more energetic. The thought alone terrified me. Despite repeatedly trying to negotiate with Liam over the next few days, my efforts were futile. Please, Liam, just say no to your sister for me.
If you don't like it, you should tell her yourself.
I'm telling you, she won't answer my calls. She's definitely avoiding me on purpose.
Not my problem.
What do you mean, not your problem? What am I supposed to do if she won't even answer the phone? That's why I'm asking you.
You're being persistent. I don't know anything about it. It's already decided that we're taking them, so just give it up.
What's that supposed to mean? In the end, he never reached out to her, and the day we were to take care of the kids was fast approaching. 2 days before their arrival, I confronted him again when he got home from work. I've given up on the idea of refusing to take care of your sister's kids. So you're going to take time off work to help, right? His face dropped as he exclaimed.
Why me? I have work.
Work? So what? Were you planning to leave all 3 to me alone?
Well, it can't be helped. If I don't work, we can't live, and we can't just suddenly take time off.
Oh, really? So you were planning to dump it all on me from the start?
Oh, well...
Never mind. Just keep doing whatever your sister tells you to," I said sharply, and he clicked his tongue in discontent. At that moment, a fiery anger swirled inside me. Did I just hear him click his tongue? Why can he act like this? It's his fault for not saying no in the first place. I can't take this anymore. I'm not going to let myself be conveniently used like this. I decided to go back to my parents' house right away and called my mom. "Hello, Mom. It's me."
Oh, hi, sweetheart. It's been a while. How's everything?
"Well, actually," I explained everything that had happened over the past few days, and my mom had an unexpected reaction.
I see. But no, you can't come back here.
"Why? I'm really stressed out with the current situation."
It's okay. I'm not saying you have to deal with it alone. I'll come over.
"What do you mean?"
I'll come there and set Liam and those kids straight. A husband who can't cherish his pregnant wife isn't worth much. We need to fix his attitude now.
"But..." Before I could finish, she cheerfully said,
It'll be okay. I won't let anything bad happen. Leave it to me.
"Okay."
Alrighty, I'll be there the day after tomorrow.
The call ended just like that. Although I was anxious, having my mom come over felt reassuring. Then 2 days later, Rachel dropped off her 3 sons much earlier than expected, at 6 a.m. Their loud noises woke me up. As soon as I let them inside, they started fighting. "Hey, that's my game. Don't touch it." "He hit me."
Auntie, I'm hungry.
It was like a battlefield. All this chaos in just 1 hour? Give me a break. How did a fight break out so quickly? Then Liam, dressed for work, appeared.
Well, I'm leaving the rest to you.
Wait a minute. You're going to leave this mess for me to deal with?
I can't help it, I have work.
You've got to be kidding. Just as I was about to yell at him, the doorbell rang.
I'll get it,
he said, heading to the door as if escaping.
Yes, who is it? Oh.
Long time no see, Liam.
Mary.
Thank goodness, my mom had arrived. Liam looked confused at her appearance.
Why are you here, Mary?
Why? Because you decided to take in your sister's kids without considering how it would affect Emily, who's pregnant.
Well...
Never mind that. It was for 2 weeks, right? I'll take care of the kids. You're about to be a father. I won't allow you to just watch. My husband panicked.
Wait, please. I have work, and if you're here, Emily will surely feel more at ease. What are you talking about? If I went back now, would you take the day off to look after them? Well, that's, Listen, I'm not asking for 2 weeks. Just take a week off, okay? Paid leave? Yes. For a whole week? Of course. You've already let your sister dictate this. Or shall I take Emily back to our home right now? No. That wouldn't be good. I understand. I'll take the leave. Thus, Liam took a week of paid leave, and my mom and he ended up taking care of the kids together. Can you boys introduce yourselves? As my mom asked, the boys started yelling, What's with this old lady? So annoying. Annoying? Let's start with some English lessons. I'll keep this game for now. Hey, give it back. You don't talk to adults like that. I'll treat you the same way you treat me. My mom said sternly, and the boys screamed. No wonder. As her daughter, I might be biased, but my mom is really scary when she's angry. Once she's mad, her normally gentle demeanor turns incredibly fierce. Moreover, my mom used to be an elementary school teacher. There's probably no one better suited for handling kids.
She didn't hesitate to scold the kids when they acted out of line, setting them to bed by 9 p.m. and waking them at 7 a.m. While at home, she limited their gaming to just 1 hour a day. 2 weeks passed, and somehow we made it through. The kids, who initially resented my mom, gradually started to listen to her. On the day we were supposed to take the kids back to Rachel's, it was my mom who decided to change the plan.
Liam, we're taking the kids to your parents' house. Huh? Then call your sister and ask her to come to the house as well. Okay? Yes, understood.
In those 2 weeks, my husband had been completely reformed by my mom into a more dependable man than ever. He contacted Rachel, and the meeting place was changed to his parents' place. We all headed there together. Upon arrival, Rachel immediately started complaining to Liam with our sour face. Why are we meeting at this house? I told you to bring them to mine.
But Mary said...
Mary? Who's that? Rachel raised her voice, and my mom greeted her with a smile.
Nice to meet you.
And you are?
I'm Emily's mother. It seems my daughter has been under your care.
Oh, Emily's mom. Nice to meet you.
What kind of person thinks it's okay to dump 3 boys on a pregnant woman for 2 weeks?
She was taken aback by my mom's direct confrontation. Even my mother-in-law, unaware of the situation, joined in the questioning.
What's this about, Rachel? You really left your kids with Emily?
Well...
She's pregnant, you know. Do you understand that?
I just asked Liam. I didn't mean to dump them on her. Rachel desperately tried to defend herself, but my mom cut the conversation short.
Can we stop with the excuses? Rachel, you've been pregnant before, right? You know that even in the 2nd trimester, you can't be too careful, right?
Well, yes.
Besides, your children don't even know how to hold a pencil, and they can't say thank you or please. What kind of parenting is that?
Well...
Don't worry, I've corrected everything that needed attention. But I did it not for you, but for the children. They're the ones who'd suffer if they grew up like that. I'm saying this for their sake, not yours. Don't misunderstand.
Rachel's face went pale, and she eventually fell silent. My mother-in-law, too, turned bright red and apologized to my mom. My mom continued to talk about how she disciplined the kids over the past 2 weeks, subtly criticizing Rachel's parenting and even the way my mother-in-law raised her. By the end of my mom's talk, both my mother-in-law and Rachel were exhausted. We're really sorry. They both apologized to my mom. Later, Rachel got a severe scolding from her mother.
You've embarrassed me because of your actions.
But I needed a break too.
There's a limit. Dumping your children on Emily, a pregnant woman, for 2 weeks is just outrageous.
I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Rachel sobbed, apologizing repeatedly. By my mother-in-law's order, they were never to leave their children with us again. Since then, my husband has become incredibly reliable, thanks to my mom, but I also felt a change in his attitude.
I'm really sorry, Emily. I never realized how hard housework and childcare could be.
It's okay. I'm just glad you understand.
I won't be pushed around by my sister anymore. From now on, I'll put you first and try to be a good husband and father. It might take a while to earn your trust, but I'm serious about this.
Thank you, Liam. I knew everything was going to be okay. With him by my side, I was confident we could build a happy home. Looking into his eyes, I felt certain of our future. Later, we welcomed a healthy baby into our family. My husband became utterly devoted to parenting, even taking paternity leave to help out. All of this was thanks to my mom's tough love.
I sold all your stuff. I'm going to the Keys with the money.
What? Why did you do that?
Just for childbirth. You overreacted by going back home for so long. It's a punishment for throwing away your responsibilities at home. You should be very sorry for what you did and behave from now on. My mother-in-law showed me the $100 bills she must have gotten from selling my personal belongings and smirked at me. After a difficult pregnancy, my baby was finally born. And yet, the moment I returned home, I'm greeted by her harassment. Do I have to live in this hostile environment for the rest of my life? Being bullied by mother-in-law while raising a child and doing housework. I absolutely cannot endure such a life. My body trembles with anger. An inexpressible emotion overcomes me. Then, things take a sudden turn. An unexpected outcome falls upon us. I am Lisa, 30 years old. I became a full-time housewife when I got married a year ago. I met my husband Sean about 6 years ago. We were colleagues, and at the same time, we were rivals. Both of us were extremely passionate about our work. We competed to take the initiative for the projects assigned to us by our superior. I refused to lose to him in any project or presentation. That must have had a positive effect. Before I knew it, we had gone from good rivals to good supporters. We were drawn to each other for the way we worked hard at our job. We got married after 2 years of dating. He requested something unexpected at the time of the registry.
It may be wrong to ask this to someone who loves working, but I want you to be a full-time housewife.
What? A housewife?
You see,
I'm not saying I don't want to. I'm just a little surprised. To be honest, I was shocked. It just sounded quite an outrageous request at the time. I found the job challenging more than I liked it. It wasn't like I didn't want to do the housework, so it depended on the reason. I didn't mind becoming a housewife, as he put it. Why do you ask me that? He became a little flustered. I'm really not good at housework. What?
I think you would most likely end up taking care of the home by yourself. On top of it, if you have to work full-time, it'll be a lot of burden on you.
Oh no, I'll be fine.
If you really want to continue working, I'm okay with it. But honestly, I want you to be a housewife and take care of the house.
Oh, babe. He was aware that it was a selfish request, and spoke apologetically from beginning to end. I felt somewhat endeared to him. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to accept his wish. I resigned from my job upon marriage and devoted myself of taking care of the house. However, I regretted my choice right away. I never realized how painful it was to stay at home. It all started with a trivial matter. One day, a few days after I got married, the doorbell rang. I thought it was a courier, so I opened the front door without checking who it was. There stood my mother-in-law, Mary.
Oh, hi, Mary.
Hey, Lisa.
My name is Lisa.
All right, whatever. Let me inside.
Wait! She forcefully came into the house after mistaking my name. She kicked off her shoes, sat down on a sofa, and made herself at home. Then she looked around the room and let out a deliberate sigh. When I went to the kitchen to make a drink for her, she yelled loudly at me.
You stay home all day, but it seems that you can't even clean properly. There's dust on the edge of the picture frame, and your hair is on the floor.
Excuse me. I'm planning to clean in the afternoon.
Why are you young people so quick to make excuses nowadays? You have no common sense.
I'm sorry.
I wonder why Sean chose you. I could have found better match for him.
She suddenly showed up and immediately started throwing sarcasm at me. She was the mother of my beloved husband after all. Of course, I didn't want her to dislike me, but recognize me as a member of her family. I wasn't going to talk back to her for those reasons. I kept my mouth shut and just listened to her unreasonable remarks. After that day, she began to come over frequently. She always looked for faults and criticized them. She complained that the house was not tidy enough and that the laundry was left in the dryer. She commented that she felt sorry for Sean for having an incompetent wife, and so on. My nerves were getting frayed by her hurtless words. No matter how much stress I felt, I couldn't talk to Sean about it. I thought about asking him for advice many times. In the beginning, if I did, he would have probably got furious and scolded her. But it was highly unlikely that she would have backed down quietly after that. On the contrary, I thought that it would have probably ignited the fire even more. I was too afraid to confide in him when I thought of that. His father passed away when he was in college. Since then, he had been living with her. Her attachment to him was so strong. She once suggested that the three of us should have lived together. He firmly refused her idea, but it was becoming more or less the same as living together as she came over to bully me almost every day after we got married. Then, a turning point came to me. It was on our first wedding anniversary. I was feeling ill and, on Sean's advice, went to the hospital. There I found out that I was pregnant. When I told him about it, he looked at me puzzled. I showed him the echo picture, and he suddenly burst into tears.
Oh my god, we're going to be parents.
Yes, that's right. You're going to be a father.
Whoa, I'm so happy that I can't stop crying.
Oh, I'm so happy too.
I don't know why the tears. Thank you, honey. I'm going to work harder from now on. For the baby's sake, let's both do our best.
We will. I was overjoyed when I got married, but I felt a different kind of happiness this time. To have a new life in my belly with the person I loved was much a mysterious and blissful thing. At the same time, a new concern arose. It was Mary, who regularly visited me without an appointment. When she happened to come over, I was so nauseous that I had to run to the bathroom. Of course, this was a symptom of morning sickness, not an illness. She guessed something from the sequence of my actions and grinned at me as I came out of the bathroom.
Are you pregnant?
Oh, well, I knew it.
Why didn't you tell me when you found out?
I'm sorry, but I'm suffering from morning sickness right now. I was going to tell you when I was in the stable period.
Oh,
well, that's okay. But more importantly,
I'm assuming it's a boy,
right? Suddenly, I was asked an unexpected question, and my thoughts stopped. We haven't found out the sex yet, and it didn't even make any difference anyway, as long as the baby was born healthy. Her question sounded to have a hidden meaning that only a male baby was worthy of being born. We don't know the sex yet.
Oh, I see. Well, one boy is enough for the successor. Raising a child costs a lot of money. By all means, have a boy and spend all your money on him.
Well, as I said, we don't know if it's a boy.
Shut up. Just have a boy. Otherwise, you are worthless.
She opened the refrigerator with a giggle and grabbed the Jell-O for herself. Sean had bought it for me as I couldn't eat anything else. I felt an emptiness inside, more than anger, and I was left with an indescribable taste in my mouth. I sobbed quietly after she left. What was wrong with her? It didn't matter what sex the baby was, as long as it was born healthy. That was all that matters. I thought everyone thought that way. She had experienced childbirth and raising a child before me. How could she say such a thing without a care in the world? Then I was convinced. If I had to deal with her any longer, I would have driven myself crazy during the pregnancy. If I didn't do anything about it, I would have affected not only me, but also my unborn baby. It wasn't a typical thing to go back to one's parents for childbirth. However, I told Sean that I wanted to return home because I was too anxious about my first delivery and decided to leave at 7 months pregnant. Mary complained that it was ridiculous and that I was abandoning my responsibilities at home, but I was not going to take any risk. Sean readily agreed, so I packed up and went back to my parents in another town. He visited me regularly, while I received numerous spiteful messages from Mary every day.
You lack a sense of responsibility as a wife. I feel sorry for your child for having an incompetent mother like you. Have a boy and come back as soon as possible. And so on. All the messages sounded like I was doing something wrong. I felt nauseated every time I saw them, so I turned off the message notification and stopped looking at them. A few months later, I gave birth to a long-awaited first child. It was a girl. She was so adorable that I didn't care about the gender. Sean seemed to feel the same way. He held her in his arms and shed tears of joy.
Thank you, honey. Great job.
I can't wait to welcome you guys back home.
I'm looking forward to a new life together.
I'll put the crib together, and if there's anything else you need, I'll take care of it. Call me when you're feeling better.
Thanks for everything, hon.
Sean's work was in the midst of its busy season. He was working overtime every day. Although we regularly had video calls, it seemed he was bringing work home, too. Unlikely, his business trip coincided with my return, and my father had to drive me home. It had been a few months. What was different from when I left was that I was holding my beloved baby in my arms. However, I felt something weird once I was in front of the house. Sean was supposed to be away on the trip, but I felt another presence inside. I opened the front door with trepidation, and sure enough, the door was unlocked and the living room light was on. I slowly walked down the hallway and peeked into the living room. To my surprise, Mary was there.
What are you doing here?
She turned around to my voice, and then smiled wryly and slowly approached me.
It's been a long time, Lisa. You're really useless to give birth to a girl.
Answer my question. Why are you in my house?
There's a duplicate key under the pot at the front door.
I haven't told Sean, but I've been coming here regularly.
That's trespassing.
What's wrong with a mother visiting her son's house?
She smiled condescendingly and pointed to my room.
By the way, I cleaned up your closet.
For what? What do you mean?
I sold all your stuff. I'm going to the kids with the money I made.
She took out a wad of $100 bills and waved it in front of my face. When I went to check my closet, I found my jewelry box emptied and all my designer's bags gone. I guessed that the bills had come from the sales of my things. I went back into the living room and shouted at her.
How dare you? Why did you take my things without my permission?
Why? Of course, it's because I don't like you. You don't even work, but you have expensive stuff.
That's why I sold them all.
But how could you go to such length?
Just for childbirth. You overreacted by going back home for so long. It's a punishment for throwing away your responsibilities at home. You should be very sorry for what you did and behave from now on.
It was at the moment that my heart instantly shattered.
What the hell? Why did I have to go through this hell?
It was unforgivable. I didn't need to put up with her. My body trembled with anger, and the back of my throat flared up. My vision distorted and her face, smiling fearlessly, crumbled. I was so enraged that I was about to scream my head off at her. At the moment, my daughter started crying, and I came back to myself. I could not stay there any longer. I opened the door to leave the living room with my daughter in my arms. Then I bumped into Sean, who had just returned home. He was full of anger.
Honey,
What the hell is going on? What the hell were you saying?
His enraged voice startled not only me, but also Mary. She was probably more freaked out than surprised. Sweating profusely from her face, she rushed to his side.
Sean, when did you get back?
Just a few minutes ago. When I opened the front door, I heard your loud voice. Did you break into her house and sold Lisa's personal things?
No, it's not what you think. I was just teaching her a lesson to be a good wife. You understand that, don't you? She gave birth to a girl. You must be upset too.
What's wrong with the girl?
Huh?
She is still our baby, no matter what. Who the hell you think you are to tell us what's right and wrong?
I am your mother.
She raised her voice in grief, but the expression on his face didn't change. He continued to scold her relentlessly.
In addition to trespassing, you are guilty of embezzlement by selling someone's property without permission. What you did is a crime. I will never think of you as my mother again.
Listen, I'm doing this for you.
What's in it for me? I've never felt so much disgust for someone before. If you ever hurt Lisa again, I'll turn you to the police.
Oh no, wait, Sean!
Shut up! Get the hell out of here.
He grabbed her arm tightly and pulled her towards the front door. She desperately resisted. When her eyes caught mine, she tearfully pleaded with me.
Lisa, please help me. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted to make you a good wife. I don't care if the baby is a boy or a girl anymore. Please tell him it's a misunderstanding.
Even in such situation, it seemed that an apology was not an option for her. If only she would have apologized from the bottom of her heart, even just once, I would have thought about it. There was no way to save her at that point. I gave a death stare to the woman who had conveniently begun to appeal to me. You don't care if it's a girl or boy? I don't need you to tell me that. An heir? What era do you think you live in? She was not born to be at your beck and call. I've put up with your harassment for a long time, but I've had enough. I will never consider your family again. Don't even mention my name from now on. Even when we decide on the baby's name, we will never tell you. I won't even let you see her. I will not let someone like you, who enjoys stepping on people's hearts, touch her. Now, get out of here and stay the hell away from my family. As soon as I finished, Sean pushed her out the door and threw her bag onto the street. She must have been in great shock. She was crying and apologizing for an hour in front of the house. Of course, we did not react at all. We have completely severed our relationship with her since then. We never let her see our daughter, and when she visits us at home, we never let her in. The only contact we made was to demand compensation for selling my things. When Sean confronted her with the idea of suing her if she didn't pay up, she readily agreed. As a result, her small savings are running out. Now, she can no longer live on her pension alone and works as a cleaner. I don't think I will have anything to do with her again, under any circumstances in the future. Sean must have been prepared for that and cut off the relationship with her. We, on the other hand, are now living happily with the three of us. Now that Mary is out of the picture, I realize how happy I am to be able to spend ordinary days. I'm sure that we will encounter various difficulties in the future. I hope to overcome them with my husband, and sometimes with my daughter as a family of 3.
The consequence for my mill, who degraded me for being low educated and kicked me out of the house.
Harassment from my mother-in-law Anita. At first, I put up with it, but if I thought she was getting carried away, I stopped listening and quickly came up with some excuses to leave the place. I became distressed by the accumulation of such incidents. I researched on the internet and various books about problems between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law and how to solve them. I even gave her a gift of a brand name item after discussing it with my husband. She seemed happy, perhaps because my husband was there, but she didn't thank me and I never saw her use it. I'm Nancy, a 26-year-old housewife. I met my husband Dan through work and got married 2 years ago. He was self-employed and quite busy. We lived with his parents. It was them who proposed that we live together. Dan was the eldest son and was very family-oriented. I knew there was no way for me to refuse from the moment the idea came out. Anita was particularly enthusiastic. "We have renovated and added more rooms to the house. You will have your own space, so it's not a bad deal, right?" She said over and over again. Although I accepted it, I made it clear that we would not interfere in each other's lives as much as possible. If I told her directly, it would have raised an issue, so I asked Dan to do it. When she was told that, she looked quite displeased. In the end, she was happier to be able to live with us and accepted the condition. I had been working as a temp before, but when I got married, I quit the job at Dan's request. To be honest, I didn't really like housework and was not good at being idle at home. Instead, I got busy taking online courses and acquiring skills. I had come to understand after living together with Anita that she was much more nagging and particular than I had expected. One day, I heard her shouting from the bathroom, "Hey Nancy! I told you many times to buy the same kind of detergent." "I'm sorry, Anita. I couldn't find it at the usual supermarket." "Then go around to the other ones until you find it." If I did the laundry, she told me in detail which detergent to use and which clothes to wash together. One time, whether she was just having a bad day or she really didn't agree with the way I did it, she told me to redo all the laundry. "Don't worry about it. They're probably clean." "Don't talk back to me. You're so sloppy. I can't believe you." She glared at me. When she got upset, she did unimaginable things compared to her petite and skinny figure, and I couldn't handle it. She once threw my favorite dress that was hanging out in the yard on the ground and made it all muddy. I got nervous whenever she started having a fit. I had never done any housework, and it was all on me. Since it was for the whole family, it was quite a lot. She had a mug of coffee I had prepared in her hand and watched me work with a smile on her face. It made me somewhat angry. I consulted Dan several times. He was very helpful, taking time out of his busy schedule to listen to me. It was just that he was a bit timid and couldn't take a strong stance toward his mother. I had been patient with her at first. Later on, if she got carried away, I learned not to listen to her and quickly came up with excuses to leave. When I became distressed by the accumulation of such incidents, I searched the internet and visited the library. I looked into problems and solutions between in-laws on the websites and in various books and took countermeasures in that way. I pretended that I didn't care and listened to her with good humor. I tried to talk back a little. I also picked a time when she seems to be in a good mood and told her nicely what I wanted her to stop doing. I even gave her gifts that matches her taste. I spoke to Dan about it, and we went a little crazy with the brand. She seems to be pleased with the gift because perhaps Dan was there, but she didn't utter a word of appreciation. After glancing at it, she never used it. Her petty complaints continued every day. I began to think that it was different from the promise we made when we moved in together in the first place. She used me as her housekeeper. Her upbringing and educational background had something to do with the way she treated me. She was born and raised as the only daughter of the slightly wealthy family. She attended a private high school and graduated from a private university. On the other hand, my mother died of illness early in my life. I grew up in a father-daughter household and started working as soon as I graduated from middle school. A college graduate versus not even GED. Despite the different circumstances, the fact was the fact. "You are really lucky, aren't you?" she always said sarcastically to me. "You are married to Dan even though you have a low education. Thanks to our kindness, you are blessed with a good life. But I think you should have known your place and stepped aside." I was at a loss for words. "You should at least devote yourself to housework and take responsibility for lowering our family standard," she triumphantly proclaimed to me. I didn't know what standard she was talking about, but I doubted a normal person would say such a thing. When I looked up the university she graduated from, I found that it wasn't as outstanding as she made it out to be. It didn't have a history or tradition to be proud of, and the rate of getting into grad school or employment was not that great either. I was not impressed. For her, I guessed it was more like having a daughter-in-law who was not at all in line with her beloved son. She loved to travel with her friends and also took equestrian lessons amongst other hobbies. When she returned from a trip, she was usually in a good mood and bragged about it to me. "My hobbies enrich me and relieve my stress. They are indispensable for me," she declared, but her hobbies were quite expensive and concerning to me. The travel destination was often overseas. Her host cost a lot of money to be boarded. She left all the housework to me and was able to freely make her own schedule. I didn't see her as having a stressful life. If there was stress, it should have been mostly dissipated by bullying me. Moreover, whenever she needed money, she always came to us. "Hey, can you lend me some money? I really want something right now. I repay you back." It escalated to the point that Dan even had to tell her, "Aren't you spending a little too much? I can't give you any more this month." She seems not to care and came up with some excuses to persistently ask for more. He usually ended up giving her money after all. She always said she was going to pay us back, but we never received any money back. I let out a sigh as I kept an accounting book. We had lent her over $2,000 since the beginning of that year. It was only the beginning of summer then, and it was not looking so good for the future. At that moment, she passed by and rushed me to make lunch for her. It was a usual occurrence, but it pricked my nerve for some reason at that time. "Could you go and buy or order your lunch today? I'm too busy and already tired." She looked at me with a puzzled look on her face, but she immediately became angry. "What a lazy person you are! You can't do anything but housework, so you should at least cook lunch. I always tell you that something simple is enough for me." There are supermarkets and delis within walking distance that serve delicious ready-made food. I have other things to do. I've explained it to you several times before. Are you serious? You want me to walk? I don't want to. Stop talking and hurry up. I'm hungry. She and I were talking in parallel. Well, it was the same old thing, so I didn't feel anything anymore. I had something I really needed to do that day. I excused myself and got up from my seat. She was infuriated seeing me leave. You're an ungrateful bastard. An incompetent girl like you don't need to be in this house. I couldn't remain silent being called names. Incompetent? What is incompetent about me? Please enlighten me. What about you in that case? You leave the housework to me and spend all your time playing around, and you even ask me for money. Who are you to tell me that I'm incompetent? She flinched a little at my unusual stern retort compared to my usually careful wording and calm tone. She continued to counterattack me. Enough! Get out of here! I'll have you guys get a divorce! I involuntarily tightened my expression, but inwardly I was thinking it was a good chance. I tried to keep as calm as possible and responded to her. That's fine. I'm actually happy to leave. I've been wondering what good there is for me in this kind of life, but you're going to regret it. I immediately turned my back on her and went to my room. I felt surprisingly refreshed. It was as if I were the heroine of some movie. She was cursing me out, but I could care less. Soon after that, I packed my necessities and left the house. I called Dan to make sure he wasn't going to worry. He sounded quite surprised at first. I told him about all the bullying I had been keeping in my heart. I'm really sorry, even though I didn't know about it until now. You've been in so much pain, and I wasn't there to help you. He apologized regretfully. It was a typical Dan, I thought to myself. I know I have faults too. It's already past anyway. I just need some time away. Riding the train to my dad's house, I fell asleep thinking back on everything that had happened since we got married. I was startled by the announcement that had arrived at the station. It was dusk and a chilly wind was blowing. To my surprise, I saw my dad standing at the exit. He was usually very quiet and a little stubborn, and I never knew what he was thinking, so I didn't expect him to come all the way to pick me up. I noticed that he had lost a little weight and gained some gray hair while we hadn't seen each other for a while. When we were walking side by side, he said quietly, "You've been through a lot." I'm sorry that I made you worry. I suppressed the tears that were threatening to well up in my eyes. Don't worry about it. I felt a warmth in my chest. We walked along the road to his house while catching up on our lives. When I was just getting used to living at my dad's, I noticed that I had many missed calls on my phone. My friends normally sent me messages and rarely called me. I got a bad feeling about it. When I checked, they were all from Anita. I looked at the details and saw that she had been calling several times every few minutes. After what happened, I hadn't been able to forget about it yet. To be honest, I didn't want to call her back. I reluctantly decided to do so, thinking it might have been something important. Then, she picked up right away, as if she has been waiting for me. I was surprised to hear her listless voice. "Hi, Nancy. I'm very sorry. Please come back." I was a little taken back. "What's wrong?" "Well, I was cleaning Dan's room a couple days ago, and I found something. I think it's a financial statement." I knew what she was talking about. Dan's company was incorporated half a year ago, so it was normal for him to make detailed statements. A statement? What about it? "I had no idea he was making so little. You knew it, didn't you? Why didn't you tell me?" She became emotional and suddenly raised her voice. I had the urge to cover my ears at the sound of her usual tone, which I hadn't heard in a while. I've told you about it several times, but it sounds like you never listened to me. I don't remember that. Well, I guess you don't. You love talking about yourself, but you're not interested in what I tell you. I'm going to buy another horse. I've already signed the contract. Please, can you lend me some money? She made such an insolent request to me even at that point. I let out a small sigh and answered, Well, Dan and I are not your wallets. Please use your own savings. Besides, you will eventually receive a pension, right? Why don't you try to manage within your means? I don't have much savings. Please, I'm begging you. Before that, do you have enough money to live on this month? I think you were just barely making ends meet last month. Since the one who has been cooking for you is gone, you must have been eating out or buying food all the time. She cleared her throat and fell silent as if I had hit the bull's eye. Your cooking wasn't bad. Actually, Dan told me to apologize to you and reflect on what I had done. Oh, did he? Well, I don't care anymore. Of course, I didn't mean it, but I couldn't think of anything else to say. I just strongly hoped that I didn't have to be involved with her anymore. Unaware of my thought, she happily continued, Is that so? That's great! Now we are reconciled. Will you come back soon? Her tone of voice brightened. I was amazed by her self-serving way of thinking. I can't live with you again, so please move on. Instead, you might want to worry more about your own future. What? What do you mean? She was puzzled as she had no idea. I didn't need to explain to her then, but she would have understood when the time came. Thinking I had said enough, I hung up the phone. She had a lot of time on her hands. She continued to call me persistently after that. I had no choice but to block her. 6 months have passed since then. I'm watching my dog happily running around in my yard. It's a pleasant morning and just right for basking in the sun. After a careful discussion with Dan, we ended our cohabitation with my in-laws. Then, we bought a beautiful semi-new house that had just come on the market. We have a mortgage now. It has a better layout than before, and is more comfortable to live in. We chose a location that was convenient for Dan's work. He is more lively than before. As for my in-laws, they are now stuck paying their mortgage because we are no longer helping them. They have moved to a small apartment far out of town. Of course, Anita been complaining a lot. I feel sorry for my father-in-law, who seems to be sandbagged by her. Since she had spent so much money on her hobbies to enjoy her life, he was left with almost nothing in his savings account. After he told her to live frugally, she started to do housework more than before. When she cooks, it takes quite a long time to make one dish, which neither looks good nor tastes good. I've heard that my father-in-law is better than her. She had been nagging me so much, but it turns out she can't even do it herself. How embarrassing. It no longer matters to me anyway. I've gotten a GED and plan to attend a university in the fall. I'm accepted to a popular university with a long history and tradition. I have always been good at mathematics and interested in economics. I taught myself stock trading from the time I was working as a temp and played around online. I started with a small amount of money at first and gradually increased the size of my fund. Dan's business was hit hard by the recession when I left home after a dispute with Anita, and his income dropped considerably. At that time, I was earning a steady profit and was able to bring some income into the household. Because of my father-in-law's pride and Dan's wishes, we did not inform my parents-in-law about it. If they watched my behavior very closely and had common sense, they would have noticed. While we lived together, Anita looked down on me from the start and treated me like a housekeeper. In the end, she missed the opportunity to live happily as a family. I did think about divorcing Dan at one point. However, after discussing it with him and my father-in-law, we agreed that she would have no contact with me in the future. In fact, I'm feeling much better, and my investments are going quite well since I stopped seeing her. The hot coffee I drink while being soothed by the sight of my cute dog brings me such joy in my life. I will be a university student starting in the fall. I look up at the clear sky, excited with anticipation.
My husband brought his mother to live with us without my permission as I was gone, giving birth, and as a result.
I'm home. Oh, Beatrice, why are you here? When I finally came back home for the first time since I left, I don't know why, but my mother-in-law, Beatrice, was here, sitting in the living room.
What do you mean, why? What are you even saying? This is also my house now, you know.
Huh? My name is Jennifer. I am 34 years old, and I am a housewife. It has been 5 years since I have been married to my husband, Kevin. Kevin and I live in an apartment which is about a 10-minute drive from his parents' house, and we have no kids yet. I thought that we would have kids as soon as we got married, but after 5 years, we still haven't had any. My husband wouldn't really say much about it, but I can feel that he's disappointed about our situation because he loves kids. I wanted to do something about it, so I went to the OBGYN clinic and consulted with them. And under the clinic's instruction, I went through fertility treatment. Then, a few months later, I finally became pregnant. My husband was overjoyed once he found out that I got pregnant. I was also very happy that we were finally able to have a baby. Of course, the birth of our own baby was the main reason for my joy, but there was actually something else. It was about my mother-in-law, Beatrice. Beatrice has always been bullying me and picking on me ever since Kevin and I first got married.
Oh, Jennifer, you are really not good at cooking, huh? It's so tasteless that I don't even know what I'm eating, since I can't taste anything from what you cook. I feel sorry for Kevin, who has to eat what you cook, Jennifer.
Well, but if it's too salty or if it tastes too strong, it won't be healthy.
What? Are you trying to say that what I've been cooking for Kevin is all bad?
No, that's not what I meant.
Kevin would always say that everything I cooked for him was delicious, and he would eat it all. Oh, I can see that Kevin can be so unhappy to have a wife like you.
This kind of bullying from Beatrice was an everyday occurrence, and what's worse was that she especially bullied me about not being able to get pregnant with kids.
When will I be able to see my grandkids, Jennifer? If you can't get pregnant, you're pretty much useless as a woman, don't you think? I had Kevin in my first year of marriage with my husband, and you do know that Kevin loves children, don't you? I really wonder why Kevin married someone like you.
I had been mentally tortured by Beatrice's relentless bullying towards me, and I thought that if I could at least have a baby, she would be a little less likely to torment me as a wife. So, when I found out that I was pregnant, I was happy in the sense that this would reduce my stress a little. But although Beatrice was happy to hear the news about my pregnancy, her bullying me didn't stop.
Jennifer, I heard that you have been slacking off on your house chores lately. And I also heard that there are days when you make Kevin do the house chores.
I'm sorry, I haven't been feeling well during my pregnancy. So that's why Kevin is helping me. It is wrong for Beatrice to say that I am making Kevin do the house chores, because my husband was taking the initiative to help me with the house chores because he was concerned about my health. But my husband is a bit of a mama's boy, and for some reason he does not take my side in front of Beatrice.
Oh, poor you, Kevin, having to work and do house chores too.
Thanks, Mom. You're the only one who understands how hard it is for me, Mom.
Oh, poor Kevin. For the most part, when I was pregnant, I didn't get sick and skip the house chores like you did.
I didn't even have the energy to listen to Beatrice endlessly bullying me. Then I decided that it was indeed too much being with Beatrice and my husband. So I decided to go back to my parents' house right before I was about to give birth, and give birth to our baby in my hometown. I first spent about 3 months at my parents' house, and I was surprised at how much stress I could get rid of just by being free from Beatrice and Kevin. My mother's cooking, which I hadn't had in a while, was really delicious, and I was able to spend some quiet time there, which was very comfortable. And then our baby, James, was born. He is a very cute boy. Then, after giving birth, I went home to show our beautiful son to my husband as soon as possible. I'm home. Oh, Beatrice? Why are you here? When I finally came back home for the first time since I left, I don't know why, but my mother-in-law Beatrice was there, sitting in the living room.
What do you mean, why? What are you even saying? This is also my house now, you know.
Huh? I had no idea what Beatrice meant. What do you mean?
So, I've been saying that I live here now.
Excuse me? I really had no clue what Beatrice meant. Why are you living here now, Beatrice?
It's because you abandoned Kevin, you know.
What?
You know, people don't usually go back to their hometown just to give birth, unless they're really sick.
But I was very sick, and it's all because of you, Beatrice.
If you leave Kevin on his own, he'll be all alone, you know. So that's why I came in here and moved in to be with Kevin, so he won't be alone.
Now that Beatrice mentioned that she moved in, I then looked around the living room and saw Beatrice's personal belongings placed in various places. Then the front door opened. Apparently, my husband had gone shopping.
I'm home. Oh, Jennifer, welcome home.
Hey, I didn't hear that Beatrice now lives in this house.
Huh? Oh, yeah. I guess I forgot to tell you. While you were back home, Mom came over often and we had a room available, so I asked her to live with me for a while. I thought it would be easier for Mom, and she wouldn't have to always drive here, so I thought it would be a good idea for her to live with me here.
Well, that was until I finished giving birth to our baby, right? Now that I'm back with our baby, your mom is going to go back to her own place, right?
No, I think she would stay a little longer, right? It's hard for you to be on your own after giving birth, isn't it?
No, I'll be okay, actually.
Oh, Jennifer, you're really a terrible person. Are you trying to kick me out?
What? Oh, is that what you were trying to do? Hey, she's my mom, so you should take better care of her.
No. That's not what this is about, is it? Then my husband got frustrated and started to get angry.
That's enough. If you hate my idea, then get out of this house.
Excuse me? Yeah, that's right. As long as I have my grandchild, there's no use for you to being Kevin's wife. So, you better just go back home to your parents. As you can imagine, what Beatrice had said made me very angry. Okay, I understand. I'm sick of being pushed around by you people, so I'll leave.
Yes, you should do that. But leave James behind.
I beg your pardon? Why would I do that?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? James is my precious grandchild.
My son is my precious child, as I sacrificed myself when I gave birth to him.
But he's also my son too. So just leave him to us.
No way.
You really are a selfish, spoiled wife.
As Beatrice and Kevin tried to forcibly take my son away from me, I rushed out of the room and went outside the apartment with James.
Hey, wait!
My husband chased after me, yelling, so I screamed and said, "Ah! Please help me!" This all happened during the daytime on the weekend, so there were a lot of people around, and people gathered around us to see what was going on. And the people around me began to stand in front of my husband as if they were protecting me. My husband then began to explain,
No, I'm her husband.
But no matter how much Kevin tried to explain, he was at a complete disadvantage. My husband had no choice but to leave and return home. I thanked the people who had protected me and immediately got a cab to my parents' house. My parents had just driven me back to my apartment, so they were surprised to see me back at their house. But when I explained them about what had happened, they both got so angry. They even told me to get a divorce with Kevin right away. I immediately went to the city office to pick up the divorce papers and sent them to the apartment where Kevin and Beatrice lived. A few days later, I guess it seems like my husband received the divorce papers, since he contacted me.
Hey! What's the meaning of this? I don't approve of this divorce.
And why not? You were the one who kicked me out of the apartment in the first place.
That's... I was just trying to show you that I'm the boss of this family.
Excuse me? Oh, please, don't tell me that you think such nonsense, like how husbands are better than wives.
No, that's what Mom told me to say.
You obey Beatrice in just about everything, don't you? Mama's boys like you are so annoying. Apparently, my husband got offended by that comment.
Excuse me? How dare you say that? I'm just trying to take care of Mom. So don't you dare call me a mama's boy.
Then, just sign the divorce papers.
Fine. I'll sign it.
Then, my husband really did sign the papers and the divorce was finalized. I was prepared to fight for custody of our son after that, but surprisingly, my husband backed down easily. I did notice, however, that when my husband said he didn't want custody, his face looked a little awkward. About a year has passed since then. I wanted to raise my son well as a single mother, so after the divorce I had job interviews with every company I could find and worked hard at the one that managed to hire me full-time. I lived back with my parents, so I was able to have my mother take care of James, which for sure helped me a whole lot. Watching James grow up day by day was such a blessing, and that alone was therapeutic. I should have made the decision earlier to leave my ex-husband and be happy on my own. While I was thinking this, my ex-husband suddenly came over to my parents' house. I hadn't seen my ex-husband in a long time, and he looked really exhausted and lifeless. As soon as he saw me, he said,
I am so sorry. Please forgive me.
As he got down on his knees. I let him in for the time being because some neighbors were looking at us. What on earth do you want?
Is James here?
He's in the bedroom with my mom.
Will you let me carry him? I've never even carried my own son before.
Huh? You were the one who gave up custody on James so easily, so what are you talking about? You're up to something, aren't you? Did Beatrice send you here? I can't let you carry him because I don't want him taken away or something.
No way. I actually really wanted to take James with me. But Mom told me to give up on the custody, saying that it would be too much for us to take James in since he was also your son too. I couldn't go against her because what she said was absolute. But the sadness and pain of not being able to see my own son was getting worse and worse. So I couldn't stand it and came here today.
By the looks of my ex-husband, it didn't seem like he was lying. My father was also home, so for the time being, my father and I blocked the door and let my son meet Kevin, while we both monitored them. My ex-husband was impressed to see James sleeping peacefully.
Oh, he's so adorable.
My ex-husband was shedding tears as he held his son in his arms. He had never been allowed to see his own son because of his terrible mother. I felt sorry for him, so I decided to allow him to visit me and my parents, as well as James, at my parents' house for now, as long as we were all there. Hearing this, my ex-husband thanked us over and over and left. After that, my ex-husband would come over once a month to see our son, and even Kevin was gradually feeling better and better. But one day, while my ex-husband was visiting, to my surprise, Beatrice had also arrived to our parents' house. My ex-husband was also surprised by the sudden appearance of his own mother.
Mom, why?
I thought you were sneaking out somewhere. But I can't believe you came over here to see this woman. I used the GPS app I planted in your phone to locate where you were.
We were indeed shocked by Beatrice. How could she go that far to even do that?
We're going home now, immediately. You better not see this woman again.
No way.
What did you just say?
I'm sick of being tied up by you, Mom. You never leave my house, so what do you even tell Dad about this?
Well, that's...
You and Paul have been divorced for a long time, right?
What?
Hey, how do you even know that?
I heard this from Kevin's little sister, Charlotte. I asked her about the relationship between you and Paul, since you seemed to always be with Kevin, and Kevin looked like he was getting tired of keeping you company, Beatrice. So, Charlotte told me something surprising. Kevin, you aren't biologically related to Paul. Did you know that?
What?
You're the son of Beatrice and a guy she was having an affair with. She hid the fact that she was having an affair and got married to Paul.
No way. So Dad got angry after finding out about that and kicked Mom out. And that's why Mom has been with me this whole time, huh? How could you even lie to me about this?
Kevin, that's not it. Kevin, I really loved your real dad, and I love you more than anyone in the world.
Shut up! To me, Dad who raised me is my real dad. And I don't want to think that you're my mom, hiding these things like that. I never want to see you ever again. I want you to pack up your stuff and get out of my house right now.
And with that, my ex-husband said to us,
I'm sorry to have bothered you. Please excuse us today.
and left the house with Beatrice. After that, Beatrice was kicked out of Kevin's house, and now she is forced to live a simple life in a lonely apartment by herself, cut off from her entire family. Being free from Beatrice has made Kevin a little more dignified. That doesn't mean Kevin and I will get back together, but I will continue to have Kevin try to be there for my son. Even if he failed as a husband, I thought I should give him a chance to be a good father to his son at least. And I will continue to work hard and raise my son with love and affection. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My bullying mother-in-law, who we had cut ties illegally, entered our house. That's when she turned pale.
I finally found you. And this time, I won't let you get away. What are you doing here? Too bad. Just let me raise my grandchild. You were too useless. When I reunioned with my mother-in-law after several years, I felt a tremendous sense of discomfort. I'm confused by her sudden statement. Grandchild? What is she talking about? I don't have any children yet. My mother-in-law changed her expression and forcibly entered the house, then started rummaging through the house while shouting. Realizing everything, I made a phone call to someone. This time for revenge is now. My name is Erica, and I am 34 years old. I work as a company clerk. Recently, I just got married. I met my husband George when I was 29 years old, and we got married after dating for 4 years. George always prioritized my feelings and is the ideal partner who accepts everything. I am truly happy that I could become a couple with him. However, the happiness was short-lived as an incident happened 3 weeks after the registration. My mother-in-law was in a traffic accident and broke her ankle, leaving her unable to live alone. My father-in-law passed away a few years ago, so only my mother-in-law lives in the family home. I had a bad feeling. One day, my husband approached me and said, Erica, my mom contacted me. She says she wants to live together while her leg heals. What? Living together? That's difficult to decide just like that. I understand. If it's too much, I can take care of my mom by myself. You can stay here. Does that mean we'll be living separately? We just got married and yet... I'm sorry about that, but my mom seems to be having a hard time, and as her son, I can't just leave her alone. I understand George's feelings. Even if I were in his position, I would have thought the same thing. However, I had a reason for not being able to accept the living together so easily. That's because my relationship with my mother-in-law is not good. It all started when I first met her. When we visited George's family to announce our marriage, my mother-in-law said something like she was examining me. Are you George's partner? You are a more normal girl than I expected. Oh, my name is Erica. George has always been good to me. Well, of course. He can't leave alone someone who looks as clumsy as you. George is too good for you. Despite being the first time meeting, my mother-in-law mercilessly threw those words at me. At the time, my husband was away from the seat, so he didn't know about it. I didn't tell him about it afterward either.
It was right after we got married, and I didn't want to worry him. But this time, the situation is different. I don't want to be away from my husband. I've made up my mind. Okay, I'll live with you, Mother.
Really? Is that okay?
Yes. It's lonely to be away from you, hon. We finally got married, you know?
Thank you, Erica. I'm sure my mom will be happy too.
My husband's eyes sparkled with joy. Seeing that, I couldn't bring myself to tell him that I was disliked by my mother-in-law. And so, just 3 weeks after our registration, we started living with my mother-in-law. Reality was even harder than I had imagined. One day, after finishing work and coming back from shopping, my mother-in-law greeted me with a reluctant voice. And then she spoke up with an annoyed voice.
Erica,
What were you doing until this time? Huh? After work, I went shopping for a bit.
wasn't work until 4 o'clock.
It's already 6 now. How long have you been out playing around? I had to work overtime today. Plus, I needed to buy ingredients for dinner. I showed my shopping bag to my mother-in-law, but she immediately shouted,
Shut up! You should be grateful just to be able to live in this house. I was supposed to live with George alone.
But you were just a nuisance. Well, I got married to George. I think it's strange to live separately so soon after getting married.
I don't care about that.
Besides,
I never approved of your marriage in the first place.
Why? Why would you say something like that?
Why? It's obvious. You are the one who I hate the most. If you understand, then hurry up and get a divorce.
My mother-in-law mercilessly trampled on my heart. Even though it was only the beginning of our cohabitation, my mind was getting more and more exhausted. A few months later, my mother-in-law had become quite proficient at walking, but my mental state was nearing its limit. With her newly acquired mobility, she began to interfere with me even more. Even when I was cooking, doing laundry, or cleaning, she would complain. I tried to avoid her as much as possible by locking myself in my room, but she still came in and scolded me for neglecting household chores. So much longer would this painful life continue. If I endured any longer, I would really lose my mind. Finally, I faced my true feelings and decided to confess the truth to my husband. Hey, George, there's something I need to talk to you about. Is now a good time?
What's wrong? Did something happen?
I've realized that I really want to live alone. Is that okay? My husband's eyes widened in surprise. Momentarily speechless, he grabbed my shoulders with a startled look on his face.
What's going on, Erica? Why are you suddenly talking about living alone?
The truth is, I'm being severely bullied by your mother. It's basically harassment. I've been enduring it all this time, but I've reached my limit.
What is that all about? When did it start? Why didn't you tell me?
Since we started living together, I didn't want to say anything bad about your mother, who is after all your mother, and someone I care about. That's why I kept quiet.
Oh, Erica.
My husband's eyes began to water. He pulled me close and whispered in my ears.
I'm sorry, Erica. I didn't notice anything.
Don't apologize. It's my fault for not discussing it with you.
No, it's not. As your husband, I should have noticed. I'm sorry it got to this point. But I'll take care of this, so don't worry.
Thank you, George. I'm glad we talked about it. The next day, my husband started looking for a new home right away. Of course, he didn't tell his mother that we're preparing to move out. We prepared everything in time for the move-in day. It was on the day of the move that we finally told his mother the truth.
Mom, we're leaving this house.
His mother's eyes widened in surprise.
What? What are you talking about?
My husband explained.
You were bullying Erica, weren't you? What are you talking about? I would never do such a thing to Erica. Erica wouldn't lie about this. We moved in with you because we were worried about you. But you insulted Erica behind my back. That's just low. We're cutting ties with you. What are you talking about? That's nonsense. Wait, George. Goodbye, Mom. I don't think we'll ever see each other again. No, George! Hey!
He vigorously shook off his mother, who was clinging to his arm. My mother-in-law wept until the end as she watched us leave. After that, peaceful days began that were beyond recognition. Originally, it should have been like this from the beginning. Spending each day with my husband is truly happy. There's no pain in my heart. Like any other couple, we occasionally have arguments, but we've always been able to overcome them because we have a mutual desire to understand each other. And a few years later, even happier things happened. My sister and her husband moved in near us. My sister is 8 months pregnant and will soon enter her final month. Not only do I feel relieved to have my sister nearby, but I am also excited to have a nephew. Because she is nearing her due date, I accompany her as much as possible when she goes shopping. One night, I had some errands to run and couldn't go with her. That night, my sister called me on the phone.
Actually, something scary happened at the supermarket today.
What happened? Are you okay?
Yes. While I was shopping, a strange woman suddenly came up to me and said, "I finally found you. When did you get pregnant?" It was so scary. And she spoke in a very aggressive tone. And then, suddenly, she slapped me. I was so confused and scared that I immediately hailed a taxi and came back home. It was super scary.
What? She slapped you? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I was more surprised and scared than hurt. I'm sorry I couldn't go with you today.
It's not your fault. Anyway, I think I should avoid going out alone from now on.
Yeah, agree. That's a good idea. From now on, I will always go with you, okay? Her story was too shocking, and even though it wasn't my experience, I felt scared. How could someone do something like that when there is a baby in her belly? It's certain that there is a dangerous person nearby. From that day on, I decided to always go with my sister using a car when she goes shopping. We never encountered that woman again. As time passed, our fear gradually faded away. 2 months later, my sister safely gave birth to a long-awaited baby boy. Several weeks later, my husband and I headed to my sister's house. She seemed to be struggling with her first child, along with her husband. While we were there, we talked about wanting to have children soon. And then we left my sister's house. When we got home, when we were about to close the door, something grabbed the door from outside. But what? And then the door was forcibly opened, and a person came into the house. It was my mother-in-law, whom we had cut ties with. Her eyes had changed, and she began to speak in a low voice.
I finally found you. And this time, I won't let you get away.
What are you doing here?
Too bad. Just let me raise my grandchild. You were too useless.
What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. I know you were pregnant.
What? We don't have any children.
Don't lie to me. Where's my grandchild?
My husband comes running from the back of the house and stands between me and my mother-in-law, as if to protect me.
Hey, what are you doing here? Didn't we cut tie with you? George, please don't say things like that. I came here to raise my grandchild.
Huh? Grandchild?
That's right.
I'm a grandmother, aren't I?
Please, let's raise the child together.
What are you talking about?
I also have the right to raise my grandchild. After all, we share the same blood. Erica, remember when we met at the supermarket and you ran away? You're such a rude woman.
With just one sentence from my mother-in-law, I realized everything. The woman who slapped my sister was undoubtedly my mother-in-law. At that moment, an indescribable feeling filled my entire body. How could she slap a pregnant woman without even confirming who she was? I won't forgive her. I immediately called my sister, and then my husband and I took my mother-in-law to my sister's house. When we arrived at my sister's house, she saw my mother-in-law's face and muttered with a pale expression, "This is the person. She's the one who suddenly hit me." I knew it was her. But how did you know it was her? Well, this person is George's mother. George's mother? She mistook me for you and thought I was pregnant. What? Even if that's the case, why would she suddenly hit me like that? I told my sister that I had been bullied by my mother-in-law in the past, which was why I had cut off contact with her and moved without telling her where I was going. My sister hugged me gently, and we both cried. My husband and brother-in-law were visibly angry, especially my brother-in-law, who clenched his fist and glared at my mother-in-law.
How dare you lay your hand on my wife like that? You better apologize properly. What's wrong with you? I just made a mistake, right? It's because those two look alike. What did you say? You're such a terrible person, aren't you? I was willing to forgive you if you apologized honestly. What's the matter with you? As expected of the sister's husband of that woman, you are an impudent and really hateful breed of people. I bet your work is not good either. Yes, I am just an ordinary lawyer who's neither great nor anything special. Huh? A lawyer? I'll ask my colleague lawyer to handle this matter. You better be prepared to pay me compensation.
The mother-in-law's face turned pale upon hearing his words. That's right. To tell the truth, the husband of my sister is a current skilled lawyer. The law firm he works for has a good reputation, and he is quite competent. Suddenly, the mother-in-law seemed to understand her position, and her attitude changed. Now she began to plead with me.
Erica, this person is your brother-in-law. Do something.
Why should I?
If we don't do something now, he would sue me. I'm living on a pension, and if he demands compensation...
I don't care. It's your own fault, isn't it? My mother-in-law stared at me with her mouth wide open, seemingly taken aback by how easily I brushed her off. I mercilessly pointed out the reality to her. In the first place, it's your own doing, isn't it?
It's not something that normal people do.
Insulting and attacking someone without even confirming who they are.
The right thing to do is to apologize to my sister first, not to me. Don't you understand even such a simple thing?
Well, wait a minute. I just wanted to raise my grandchild.
That's why I said in the first place that I wasn't pregnant, didn't I? Even if I have a child in the future, I will never let you meet them. You were not our family in any way. If you understand, then never show up in front of us again.
Perhaps my words struck her deeply, as my mother-in-law didn't say anything in response. Afterwards, she had to pay compensation for the violence against my sister and illegally entry into her house. Afterwards, with only her pension, she couldn't afford to pay the compensation and ended up in debt. Now, I heard that she's working as a part-time cleaner. Perhaps in the future, my mother-in-law will never spend a day with her family with a smile. But it's all her own doing. It's something she brought upon herself with her actions, so I want her to atone for her sins as much as possible. As for us, we recently found out that we're pregnant. He was genuinely happy that new life had begun. We went through some tough times, but we should have a bright future ahead of us. We will work toward a happy future together as a family of 3.
I want a divorce. What? Divorce? There's no need to be with you anymore. This is the first time I heard my husband's voice in 3 months. Since we got married, my husband has turned into a dominant man and has been making sarcastic remarks towards me. And he has been ignoring me for the past 3 months. Oh, really? Fine, I'll divorce you. I don't want a failure wife like you. He replies with a grin and starts signing the divorce papers. I watched in silence. You suggested to divorce yourself, so there won't be a division of property, okay? I understand. Well, somebody's accepting today, but you're going to be miserable. You have no savings, no family, you're a divorcee, so now you're going to be a loner. Let's see how you're going to live. I turned my back to my husband with a smirk on his face and left the house later that day. But soon after the divorce, my ex-husband was eager to contact me in some way. My name is Shirley Sanders, a 28-year-old wife in a dual-income family. I met my husband, Wilson, through a friend. Wilson works for a major travel agency and is very dedicated to his job and very kind to me. I had little experience with the relationship, but I immediately fell in love with him, and we started dating. After 3 years of dating, Wilson proposed to me. Shirley, will you marry me? I'll make you happy. Of course, Wilson. I'm so happy. Wilson tells me softly as tears stream down my face. We'll have to go tell your mother. I hope she'll be happy to hear the news. I'm sure she'll be overjoyed. Her only daughter is getting married. I grew up in a single-parent household. When I was 4-year-old, my father and mother split up and my mother took me with her. I have only a dim memory of my father, and I never saw him after that. I think he was a kind man, but I never heard about what led to their separation. I never asked her about it because she didn't seem to want to talk about it. Anyway, after that, my mother raised me by herself. It was a humble life, but we supported each other. The bond between my mother and I is strong. When I told my mother about my marriage, she jumped up and down with joy. Shirley, I hope you're the best. Wilson, please take care of Shirley for me. My mother said with tears in her eyes, and Wilson replied with a smile. Of course. Seeing this scene, I felt the happiest I have ever felt. I knew that with Wilson, we would be able to build a warm family. I was convinced of that. Later in marriage, Wilson and I had an immediate disagreement. The reason was that I decided to keep working. Wilson wanted me to quit my job and focus on the housework. And at first I agreed, but when I told my coworkers about it, they wouldn't let me go. I didn't dislike my job. In fact, I found it very rewarding, so I told them I would keep working. You promised you'd quit your job. Why would you say you'd keep working after that? Wilson told me in frustration, to which I responded, You don't have to be so angry. You know, it's always better to have a bigger family income, right? I wanted you to take care of the house, though. You're not going to be able to do all the housework if you're working, right? Well, I'll do my best to take care of the house, so I just want you to let me work. Wilson sighed to my request. I guess I don't have a choice. I'll let you work, but don't cut corners on the housework, okay? I'm not going to do anything. Okay. I couldn't dare to ask him to share the housework in the heavy atmosphere. After that, as he declared, he never tried to help me with the housework. On the contrary, he began to complain about my housework. Perhaps because he didn't like my choice to continue working, or perhaps because of his personality. One day, at dinner, he said out of the blue, Today's food is so bad. I can't eat such a thing. What? Did I do something wrong? What did you not like? I tasted the food before serving it that day, and I didn't find anything wrong with it. I asked Wilson what was wrong, and he answered with a contorted expression. Are you so stupid that you can't understand unless I tell you everything? What? Why don't you know my tastes, even though you're my wife? But I couldn't help but look down at the floor. Then Wilson got up and was headed somewhere. Where are you going? Huh? The deli down the street. I'd rather go to a deli than eat something like this. Wilson walked out the front door, ignoring me calling out to him. I was so surprised that I couldn't say anything back because I had never heard him talk to me like that before. But at that time, I still thought it was a coincidence and that he was just having a bad day. I had no idea that he would continue to torment me after that. Wilson's sarcasm gradually escalated, taking advantage of my inability to speak back strongly because I had made the choice to continue working. A strand of hair is on the floor. The coffee is lukewarm. He would call me for the smallest things and scold me. What I thought was a manly personality turned into an extremely demanding husband after marriage. Even so, I continued to endure Wilson's unreasonable treatment. I don't even know if there is such a thing as love anymore. Still, I endured it, not wanting to disappoint my mother, who was so happy about our marriage. Then I got a call from my mother, asking me to come and see her. I hurried over to see her. But she had lost a lot of weight and the time I hadn't seen her. Mom, what's wrong? You've lost so much weight. And what did you want to talk about? To which she quietly replied, Actually, I found out that I have cancer. It has metastasized and I only have 3 months to live. Oh no, you have cancer? I didn't want to believe that. I broke down in tears right there. They said that my mother's cancer was progressed to the point where there was nothing they could do. Mom, I'll stay with you as long as I can. I'll be there for you. Surely, thank you. But make sure you don't inconvenience Wilson. There was no way I could tell my mother, who was so concerned about Wilson, about the unreasonable treatment I was receiving from him. When I returned home that day, I told Wilson about my mother. That's why she's going into the palliative care unit. I'm going to go to the hospital regularly and take care of her for a while. Wilson was obviously not concerned about my mother and said, What? What are you going to do about your work and the housework during that time? I'll try talking to my coworkers about work, and I guess I'll need some help with the housework. Wilson snickered. So you can take time off from your job that you've been continuing even though you can't do the minimum housework properly just for your mother? Well, because my mother has... And on top of that, you want me to help with the housework? Don't be ridiculous. You'll still be in charge of all the housework. But... I couldn't help but lose my words. I had expected a little help from him since this was about my family. However, my expectations were dashed. If you don't do the housework properly, I won't let it slide. Wilson glared at me with such words. I recall my mother's words. Don't inconvenience Wilson. And all I could do was nod my head. From then on, my days were hectic. I would spend my spare time visiting my mother at the hospital and go home to take care of the house. It was difficult for me to concentrate on housework, partly because of the pain of seeing my mother getting weaker day by day. 2 weeks after I started visiting my mother in the hospital, Wilson called me. Hey Shirley, my shirt isn't ironed. The shirt Wilson has is definitely not ironed yet. I'm sorry, I haven't getting a lot of sleep lately. I'll get to it now. Don't make excuses. My husband yelled at me. I'm too busy taking care of my mother, I said in a tearful voice, to which Wilson coldly replied. You married me, and you think your mother is more important than me? My mother is terminally ill with cancer. So what? You're always making excuses. You failure. Your parents didn't educate you well. This is what happens to children of single parents. His words were so harsh that I couldn't say anything. My husband's contemptuous attitude continues. Oh, there's no use to even talk to you anymore. Since then, Wilson stopped responding to anything I said. He ignores my existence as if I never existed in the first place. No matter how much I tried to talk to him, he wouldn't answer. Even to my words of good morning and good night, he would look away and sigh. As I led this life, I became mentally drained. The sarcasm was hard enough, but to be ignored was more painful, as if he was telling me that my existence had no value anymore. I burst into tears in my mother's hospital room. What's wrong, Shirley? I'm sorry, Mom. It's nothing. Shirley, come here. My mother seemed to realize something. She stroked my hair with her skinny hands, just like old times. Shirley, you're having a hard time, aren't you? Now, listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. And my mother told me something surprising. Wilson's neglection continued after that. I continued to do the housework as I told, but Wilson began to silently throw away my meals. I began to have stomach pains whenever I was at home, and only when I was in the hospital room with my mother could I truly feel at ease. However, such a life did not last long. After a long battle with illness, my mother passed away. I went home after the procedure at the hospital and talked to Wilson. I've already texted you, but my mother passed away. Wilson didn't answer anything. The funeral is the day after tomorrow, and I'll be making arrangements. Wilson ignored me and went into the other room. It was a clear sign that he didn't want to attend the funeral. I was at my wit's end. After all the sarcasm and neglect, he wouldn't even attend my mother's funeral. I couldn't be married to this man any longer. At that moment, I made up my mind to divorce him. But there was something I needed to do first. Dressed in black, I went to the funeral. The day after my mother's funeral, I approached Wilson, who was still ignoring me. I have something important to tell you. My husband was still ignoring me, So I stood in front of Wilson and held up the completed divorce papers. I want a divorce. What? Divorce? This is the first time I have heard my husband's voice in 3 months. Yes, I can't be with you anymore. My mother passed, so there is no need to be with you anymore. Oh, really? Fine, I'll divorce you. I don't want a failure wife like you. He replies with a grin and starts signing the divorce papers. I watched in silence. You suggested the divorce yourself, so there won't be a division of property, okay? I understand. Well, somebody's accepting today. But you're going to be miserable. You have no savings, no family, you're a divorcee. So now you're going to be a loner. Let's see how you're going to live. That's none of your business. Well then. I turned my back to my husband with a smirk on his face and picked up the divorce papers. Then I took my pre-packed belongings and left the house later that day. A month later, I was in my new house looking at my mother's picture as usual. Then suddenly, my phone rang. It was Wilson. I put the phone down and pretended I didn't see it. But after that, the phone rang every few minutes. He was blowing up my phone. He was so persistent that I had no choice but to answer it. Hello? Hey, I want to ask you something. Where are you? I sighed at Wilson's shouting over the phone and gave him the address of my new house. A few hours later, Wilson showed up at my mansion. He stands at the gate looking at the house with a blank stare. What in the world has he calling me so many times? He exclaimed in surprise when he saw me at the gate. Hey, you live here now? Why could you ever live in this kind of place? He looked at me and the house alternately with a confused expression. I led him through the living room. Hey, explain first. How can you live in this place when I kicked out without property division? Wilson spat at me as I drank my tea in silence. Are you talking about this house? My father gave it because he heard I'd have nowhere to go after my divorce. Huh? Your father? You only had a mom. And so I explained. My mother had told me to call my father when she passed. My father was a wealthy man who fell in love with my mother, who worked as a housekeeper, and I was born. But apparently, my father's parents didn't allow him to marry someone of such a different status. They continued to harass my mother, and eventually she became ill. So then she promised to never get involved with them again, and left the house so that I wouldn't have to bear their harassment. My father made it seem like he had no connection with my mother in front of his parents, but in fact, he kept in touch with her for all these years. He even provided financial support when needed. When my mother found out that I was having marital problems and was in pain, she gave me my father's contact information. We later met at my mother's funeral. I missed you so much. My father hugged me in tears. His parents, who had opposed to their marriage, were already gone, so he promised to be on my side from now on. I told him how Wilson had treated me and that I wanted to divorce him. My father looked me in the eye and said, I'll get you a house to live in as soon as you get divorced. So that's why I live in this house. I'm not a loner, I'm still working, and not hurting for money. It's too bad you couldn't see me miserable. Wilson bites his lip and looks chagrined, but he quickly changes the subject. Well, I don't care what you're going through. I'm here today for something else. Have you heard of Miller Resorts, a nationwide luxury lodging company? It's a client of our company. They suddenly said they're cutting contract with us. So what about it? They say it's my fault. I asked them the reason, but they said to ask my ex-wife. What the hell does that mean? I giggled when I heard that. Wilson still looked confused. What the hell? What on earth is going on? Do you know who the chairman of Miller Resorts is? Huh? Wayne Miller, I think? Yeah, that's him. I pointed straight to my father. Huh? Why is Mr. Miller here? Wilson stood up with an astonished look on his face. In response, my father clears his throat and answers. My daughter said she's going to invite her lousy ex-husband to her house. What's wrong with her father being here for that? Daughter? So, surely your father is Mr. Miller? Wilson stands there, stunned, now understanding the whole story. Now that I know what you did to Shirley, I will not do business with your company. If you understand, get the hell out of here. Wilson then became distraught and turned to me. Shirley, if Miller Resorts cuts the contract, I won't be able to stay with my company. Please tell your father to reconsider. And we'll start over too. Let's have a happy family this time. I pushed Wilson away and yelled at him. Don't be selfish. I'll never forget what you did to me. I don't want a do-over. I'll never forgive you, you piece of trash. Wilson had his head down, his face covered in tears. My father grabbed him and kicked him out of the house. Wilson was later fired from the company for his actions. I heard that it'll be difficult for him to get a new job at another company in the same industry because of the rumors about what he had done to me. He is now in a small, shabby apartment, spending his time looking for a new job. It must be very hard for him with his pride, but I hope he will live his life reflecting on his own actions. I, on the other hand, continue to work hard while living in the mansion my father gave me. I have a good relationship with my father, and although he is always trying to spoil me, calling it help, it is nice to have a family. My father recently asked me if I would be interested in getting to know of his favorite employees at work. I saw his picture and he seemed sincere, so I'm going to meet him soon. From now on, I would like to be grateful to my family and live a happy life for myself.